Let's be honest. In today's world, business runs on data. And protecting that data, it's not just some IT problem anymore. It's at the very heart of the business. So how do you actually build a digital fortress that can stand up to all the modern threats out there? Well, today, we're going to demystify the global blueprint for doing just that, ISO 27001.
But let's start with a really fundamental question. If you had to name your organization's single most valuable asset, what would it be? You might be thinking about your people, your buildings, or maybe your special technology. And you know what? Those are all incredibly important. But there's one asset that kind of underpins everything else.
Yep, it's your information, your data. It's the new currency, really. It's the absolute lifeblood of your day-to-day operations. It's what gives you an edge over the competition, and it's the bedrock of your customers' trust. If you lose that, you could lose everything.
And like any valuable asset, it's a target. I mean, you wouldn't just leave piles of cash lying around, right? You'd build a vault. Protecting your information needs that exact same kind of systematic, heavy-duty defense. And the thing is, the threats are coming from all over the place. We tend to picture this sophisticated cybercriminal in a dark room, but the danger could just as easily be an innocent accidental click from a colleague, or a server that just gives up, or even a simple pipe bursting in the basement. The risk is always there, and you never know where it's coming from next. So when we talk about information security, what are we actually trying to protect? Well, the international standard boils it down to three key things. First, confidentiality. Basically, keeping secrets secret. Second, integrity. Making sure your data is accurate and hasn't been messed with. And third, availability. Ensuring you can actually get to your data when you need it. You get these three right, you've got a rock-solid foundation.
Okay, so how do you possibly defend against so many different kinds of threats? A simple checklist or buying one piece of software just isn't going to cut it. To be truly effective, security can't be a one-and-done task. It has to be a whole system, woven right into the fabric of your organization.
You know, it's so easy to think that technology is the whole answer, but things like firewalls and antivirus software, they're just one piece of the puzzle. Real security is a structure built on the right technology, sure, but it's supported by clear procedures for your people, and the whole thing is governed by an overarching management system that makes sure everything works together.
And that brings us to the big idea, the Information Security Management System, or ISMS. Now look at this definition. The keywords here aren't software or hardware. They're systematic approach and business risk. An ISMS isn't something you just go out and buy. It's a process that you build. It's a living, breathing part of your organization that's always adapting to the specific risks you face. So, how do you build one? Well, the great news is you don't have to start from a blank page. This is exactly where ISO 27001 comes into play. Think of it as the internationally agreed-upon blueprint for a world-class ISMS. It's not going to tell you which brand of firewall to buy, but it will tell you exactly what a secure system needs to be able to do.
Now, you might also hear about his sibling, ISO 27002, and it is crucial to know the difference. The best way to think about it is like building a house. ISO 27001 is the architect's blueprint. It has the hard requirements. The foundation shall be this strong. ISO 27002, on the other hand, is like a friendly builder's guide. It gives you tips and best practices. You know, you should probably consider using these materials for a stronger foundation. You get certified against the blueprint, 27001, and you use the guide, 27002, to help you build it properly.
So what's the engine that actually drives this system? The key thing to wrap your head around is that ISO 27001 is not a set it and forget it kind of deal. It's built on a really powerful cycle of constant improvement. This part is absolutely critical. Threats evolve, right? Your business changes. Your security system has to keep up. And ISO 27001 makes that happen using a simple but incredibly powerful process called the Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle. This cycle is basically the heartbeat of your ISMS. It all starts with a plan. You figure out what your risks are and what you're going to do about them. Simple enough. Then you do it. You actually put those controls and policies into action. But you don't stop there. Next, you check. You step back, you monitor, and you ask, how's this all working? Are there any gaps? Are our controls actually effective? And finally, you act. You take what you learned from the check phase and you make things better. And this isn't a one-way street. It's a continuous loop, making sure your security is always getting stronger. And the entire foundation of that plan phase, the starting point for everything else, is one crucial concept: risk. You don't just apply security controls at random because they're on some list.
You start by getting a really deep understanding of your organization's unique risks.
The standard requires you to approach this like a detective. First, what are you trying to protect? You identify all your valuable information assets. Next, who or what are the bad guys? You identify the threats. Then, how could they get in? You find the vulnerabilities. Then you start asking the really big questions. How bad would it be if they actually succeeded, and what's the likelihood of it happening? It's only after you've answered all of those questions that you can truly understand your risks and start prioritizing them.
So, you've done all this hard work, you've built and are running your ISMS. How do you actually prove to the world that you've done it right? Well, that brings us to certification.
Once your system is up and running, you can bring in an accredited independent auditor. They will put your ISMS under a microscope, and if it meets all the strict requirements of the standard, you earn a formal certificate. This isn't just a piece of paper. It's a powerful signal to your customers, your partners, and even regulators that your commitment to security has been checked and verified by experts. But, true to that spirit of continuous improvement, the certificate is not the finish line. Not even close. It's typically valid for 3 years, and you have regular surveillance audits in between. This makes sure that your plan, do, check, act cycle keeps spinning, and it forces you to maintain and constantly strengthen your security posture.
This quote from the standard itself just perfectly captures the whole philosophy. A nonconformity is just a fancy way of saying failing to meet a requirement. In other words, this whole thing is about being proactive. It is almost always cheaper and way less damaging to invest in a strong lock for the door than it is to clean up after you've already been robbed.
And that's really the ultimate takeaway here. The certificate is the proof, but the real prize is the system itself. The goal isn't just to pass an audit, it's to build a resilient security culture that adapts, learns, and gets stronger every single day.
So I'll leave you with one last question to think about. Is your organization's security just a static checklist sitting on a shelf gathering dust? Or is it a living, breathing system, ready for whatever challenges today and tomorrow throw at it?